Easy is once again not with us for this recap episode, part 2 of 2025, looking at different stories from July straight through December. Last I heard of Easy, he was getting carried by Monroe through a 5k out in Lusk out there. So I think he crossed the finish line. I'm not so sure in that one, but we'll find out more in the intro to Monday's episode, how we got on, as well as how we both got on in the Tom Brennan 5k that was on today as you listen on the 1st of January. So happy new year to all our listeners there. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast, not only today but throughout 2025. It's been an unbelievable year for us. We've had more downloads this year than any other years. The episodes just keep growing and growing. We've had 64 episodes throughout this year. A lot of Thursday specials were in that one, as well as 55 guests we've had the podcast over those 64 episodes. We also had our Fantastic Four come on, talk about their story, their individual stories leading up to Dublin Marathon. That's been absolutely phenomenal. October again was an unbelievable month for us in terms of the build up to Dublin Marathon. You'll hear a lot about that in this episode. But not only Dublin Marathon, what we try to do is, I know we talk on our socials about it being like the best of and stuff like that, but what we wanted to do for this one, just have different types of segments in this, so you're not just going to hear all about Dublin or all about training. So a little bit of nutrition sprinkled in with, one or two funny stories and one or two very serious stories as well in this one. So try to have a mixed bag, because that's been the great thing we've had with the podcast this year, is that we've tried to have different stories each week. So we talk to people in person, and someone like, I wasn't too sure about this episode, but this episode really brought me in. So we try to do that throughout the year, and hopefully more of the same in 2026. We do have our first guest lined up, ready to go for 2026. We can't wait for that to get started. But before we do, have a good new year. Hopefully you guys enjoy this clip show of July to December 2025. And with that being said, let's go.
So what can people expect on the morning of the marathon, and what's best? What's the best strategy for just finding new guys, positioning themselves in the waves and getting involved early?
Well, don't rely on Jamie's balloon. Well, I think Dublin Marathon have done a great job in terms of coordinating, the waves and the meeting points and dropping off your bag and all. I think for anybody, just give yourselves plenty of time. Get in with plenty of time, make sure to have something in your hand to eat, because you'd be waiting around a while depending on what wave you're in. And also bring something with you, like stay warm. People forget they'll be standing there for quite a while before they start, and you do lose a lot of energy standing around in the cold. It could be raining, like we've had every weather, but like, just keep warm. So have like a throwaway hat, a throwaway top, and it all goes to charity if you leave them at the start line. But it's just really important to just keep, not to get cold, because you're just wasting that energy that you need for running. But like, everybody should know the wave they need to go to. Like, you won't get to move up a wave. You can certainly move down a wave. But look, just try and stay calm and relaxed. Find your way into your wave in plenty of time. As I said, it's all well marked, bag drop all well organized. Like, they do a great job, all the volunteers. So I just say, just give yourself time is the most important thing.
Jamie, when your balloon stays inflated and people manage to find you, and they're going to have the dilemma: do I stand in front of Jamie? Do I stand behind him? Do I try and chase him? Do I let Jamie chase me? What is the best method? There is no one way to do it. Obviously, it's very individual, but how can people position themselves at the start line to be part of that energy that Anne described earlier, the nervous energy, good, bad, or indifferent? It's good to be a part of that group at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the key thing to remember, and at the start and maybe through water stations and busy areas, I'd often say it to the pace group, just keep the balloon in sight, right? Because you don't have to be literally on top of the pacer. Like, that does happen. And we turn, to get
someone
some
holding
water
onto your pocket.
It's almost like that, like they'd be stuck to the side of you. And that, I totally understand it, because you're there, you're full faith in the pacer, and you want to go exactly where they're going and take the route as exactly the way they want to go. So I'd always say, first of all, keep the balloon in sight. There's going to be times maybe where you might fall back a little bit, or you could end up going ahead. I'll come back to that in a second. But it's more about, do run your own race within that. Keep the pacer in sight. Keep them in earshot. There's 3 to 4 pacers depending on what pace group you're going at. So there's plenty of us around to kind of follow, right? in terms of being in front or staying behind, that's kind of your call. I've done both. It depends. Are you motivated by potentially being caught and trying to stay ahead and you feel good, you know? But then what happens if the pace group passes you by at 20 miles? How do you feel? Are you completely gutted by that, right? So you got to think about that. Or do you want to sit in behind the pacer and follow it, hold that energy back, and just, you know, if you're feeling good, then later on, the last couple of miles or the last mile, and you have a bit more in the tank, go for it. You know, so it's really a personal decision there. I've done both, and it probably depends on really ultimately how you've trained and what your mindset is and what you feel better doing. Bit of a fudge of an answer, but it probably is a bit personal.
Cliodhna, you are set for the Dublin Marathon this year. Is this your first marathon, or have you done marathons before?
This is my first venture into long distance running. I think the longest I ran before this was I did run the line in November. So that's the longest I ran up until now.
That 26, did you 26 or 13K run the line? 26?
Yeah, the 26, yeah.
That is, we've had people in the podcast before talk about trail running. It's like a 10K trail run is almost twice, 3 times as hard as a 10K road race. So that's a good start to have that 26K under your belt so far for that one.
So happy days.
How scary is it to be thinking about taking on a marathon at this stage?
I suppose I've been running a long time and it's kind of always been there, but I've just ignored it. I always knew I didn't want to do a marathon until I was able to give it the time, because I wouldn't be happy just finishing. I'd be competitive enough. So for me, I knew I needed to wait until there was a window where I could kind of get the hours in on the road. So hopefully that's now. So I'm excited. But yeah, sure, it's daunting, isn't it? It's a huge start. It's a huge thing to face into, and there's so many different parts to it. Yeah, really excited, but hoping it all goes well.
Does it add to the pressure that you've waited for a time that you're like, oh, but now is there extra pressure on you? Like, I've waited this long to do it. I'm doing it.
Probably because it's funny because I live in a small town. I live in Oughterard in County Galway, and everybody knows me as your one out running all the time. And I think everybody thinks I've ran marathons, and I haven't. And I know sometimes when I meet people and they go, "Oh, have you done a marathon?" and I'm like, "No," and you can see them looking twice at me, going, "She hasn't." So anyway, I will, and I will have at the end of this. And sure, pressure keeps you going, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
At least you're known as the one out running all the time. Connor's in the pub every Wednesday with his 3 mates. Connor, we're on to you. I'm going to have to go to Drogheda on a Wednesday and have it is. With Cliodhna, you are very welcome. It's great to have someone who's experienced in running, but even still taking on this first marathon, which is a huge challenge. And there is nothing like it. It is a race in itself, and that's the beauty of it. And we get to see how you go. Any concerns as you go, even with the experience now? I know obviously time on the legs is probably one thing. Any major concerns you have at this stage?
Probably not. I suppose my home situation is kind of what may or may not come against me. So 2 years ago, my husband passed away from pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed in May and he passed away in March. I have 3 kids. I've from 17 down to 10. And then last January, in January 24, my 10-year-old was diagnosed with leukemia. So for me, it's trying to get the juggling the time, being on the road and being at home, but really needing the time on the road to keep me sane for home. So for me, running is probably the one thing I could control through all of this. I could control when I went for a run. I suppose that would probably be the biggest fear for me, is that, my daughter as well, she's on maintenance. So hopefully we're coming through we've gone through the hard part of chemotherapy and all that. She's still on chemo, but I suppose for me, it's to just that I can maintain the balance between being present at home and getting the time in on the road. So I suppose that's probably one of the concerns, but I can't control that. So I have to see how it goes.
It's one of them, and you have our sympathy and our support for everything you're going through. And it's great that you're giving this the time. And like so many runners, we're always running for something, from something, and most times just for our own mental space. Like you said, protect the time that we can add in and schedule in over the next 16 weeks. So we definitely wish you all the best over the next little while, Cliodhna. You're also the one that calls me out on wherever I put up pictures on, so I remember that all the time. So I'm going to call you out on all your lack of training that you don't do over the next 16 weeks. So it's come full circle. But Cliodhna, you are very welcome to the group. Thanks so much for sharing your story, and we're excited to train with you over the next 16 weeks.
Wow, you don't
Looking forward to it.
Don't hold a grudge at all there. Jeez, don't
No
hold a
way.
grudge at all.
She didn't hold back on me.
We started off with lane training with him, so Monday nights was lane training with other groups as well. And then sitting on my program for the day.
Start again, Rob. That's Cracklin's coming in. The lane training and stuff on a Monday. You're
lane
about to go
training
through.
on Monday was the last.
Yeah,
thing
so
we
lane
finished.
training on a Monday night, and then we'd sit down on a Wednesday. Then he kind of lay out then the rest of the kind of program for the week. And so like that's would have kind of went and would have kind of off about 30.
Rob, it's like your headphones are fucking censoring you.
Fuck.
Try without the AirPods at all.
So anyway,
Right,
you
you
did
talk
lane
about-
swimming on a Monday.
There we go.
Yeah, no, so done lane swimming on a Monday. Then on Wednesday we sat down then and planned out for the week. Are you fucking taking the piss now here with me going through this again? You bollocks. I should have fucking known.
I ask because we are going to have listeners a lot of time who are grabbing information, first-time marathoners, maybe even second-timers who are realizing I need to fuel this a little bit better. Caffeine. So when I did a race, Sean witnessed this. It was like the resurrection. Red Bull can, in fact, give you wings. And if they're listening, I want €1 million for saying it. But caffeine saved my Ironman, and I will say that, and a lot of it. At a point where I didn't know I was going to get there, it gave me I know I'm able to take caffeine in races. So that's the first disclaimer.
Yes.
I've tried it, I've tested it. I got to a point I recognized I am really under pressure, and a quick fix can be caffeine. And in my case, a lot of it between Red Bull was it. Sean's seen an end marathon of near despair to cruising up hills based on a couple of cans of Red Bull and a bit of caffeine. What is caffeine? We all know what it does and how it makes us feel, but what is it when it comes to sport, and how should we tiptoe around caffeine when it comes to endurance?
Yeah, no, so I'm a promoter of caffeine. Caffeine is good. It's a stimulant. It's easy.
That's three of us getting €1 million off Red Bull now. I'm going to tag them in this.
So it's easy, accessible, it's cheap, it's transportable. Again, thinking of the practicalities when you're racing abroad, you know you can get a coffee somewhere. With caffeine, what I would say is just be mindful of the time of the day you're taking it. In your training, you don't want to be taking it too late in the day that it affects your sleeping or your bedtime. I do think as well, we shouldn't become too reliant on caffeine. And this was myself included. I could not go for a run in the morning without a coffee. Was that a mental thing, or did I actually need the caffeine as a stimulant? Whereas now I kind of pick and choose. If it's an easy run, I'm like, Niamh, you're going meeting a friend, you're going having a chat, and you're running while doing so. Do you really need a coffee?
Do you need
Get one
do you need
after
a
and
kick?
make it a nice social occasion. Again, things like, I suppose, if we think of caffeine, coffee is their more common form, but it does come in things like your energy drinks, like Red Bull, Monster, or like the pre-workout, things like that. Should you need a can of it every single day before a workout? No. If you feel that you do and you're relying on that, because that's quite a concentrated source of caffeine, I would have a think and be like, why am I needing this every day? Is there actually something else I should be doing? Why am I so tired and fatigued to require this concentrated form of caffeine to get me through this run or this gym session or whatever it is? So I'm for it. It's an enhancement. It's a stimulant, but just have a think, are you actually relying on it to get you through sessions?
As opposed to complementing an endurance session. And
if so,
when we try and complement endurance, and that's the part where we have physically seen people mess it up in white shorts. It is a diuretic. It can have an impact on the body, which is something people need to remember, and it's important to try it first.
Yeah, absolutely. So
what's a good strategy, Niamh? People are gonna, because people make so many mistakes, and we have. But what is a good way to approach this? Again, we've a timeline. People are kind of like, oh, caffeine, I never considered it. What way could they approach this? And what's, again, we have the asterisks of individual. what's a good way to approach a kind of race strategy of introducing caffeine to it, particularly
So
when it comes to a marathon?
yeah, so I suppose if we're thinking a race day, anything on race day you want to have done in training beforehand. So in terms of coffee or having a coffee in the morning, I would recommend practicing it in your training, having your coffee, but waiting to try go to the toilet first. Because
Okay.
that's what it does. It's like it's a kind of a laxative, like it makes you go to the toilet. That in combination with running and high heart rate is a bit of a disaster. So do try kind of wait around and go to the toilet. And you'll actually be surprised how your body becomes trained to it. When I was doing my training block, it's like my body knew up, toast, coffee, toilet, run. It was great. So
Brilliant.
just try get into that bit of
Until when the nerves kick in, you don't go toilet, and then it's all you can think about is you're looking for a Portaloo on race morning.
And then in terms of, I suppose, on the course and caffeine gels and things like that, again, just try everything in training first. Some people are fine with the caffeine gels. Other people, their gut is a bit more sensitive, and it's a no. Do you really need a caffeine gel during a marathon? Like versus, a marathon might be a quarter time wise versus an Ironman. There's a big difference there. But yeah, just try everything in training first.
Niamh,
And
in
when
terms of
people are
caffeine,
throwing these caffeine gels around to each other as we get to the 25, 30K mark, what is it that caffeine does to us? That's what we all take it. We don't really. I know it gives me a kick because I don't drink much coffee. I don't, and so when I take it, I get a really big kick off the
Yeah,
stimulant side of it. But what is
yeah.
it doing to our bodies in endurance races?
So yeah, it is that. It is a stimulant. Everyone's how strong of a stimulant it is depends on the person. If you're not used to drinking coffee and you have a coffee, it's going to perk you up more versus someone that drinks 10 coffees a day, we'll say. And I suppose part of the stimulant as well, if you're taking on a race, it might have a bit of a placebo effect, which is good on a race day.
I'll take
If
it.
you-
I'll take anything.
Yeah. So if you think, okay, I'm after having a caffeine gel now, I'm suddenly buzzed, I've loads of energy, just go with it. It's fine.
100%.
That's your advantage as well.
Niamh, when it
It's
comes
like
to taking
it's like when I watch Sean drinking pints and I leave drunk. This water is magic water, but I still love it. It's still amazing.
Niamh, in terms of coffee in the morning, one, how long does it take to kick in? And two, with the longer runs coming up, and people want to get up earlier and earlier to run, they don't want
Yeah.
to have food and stuff and fuel beforehand, but they feel like they might need the fuel, or they go fasted. And if they have food, how long does it take before the food kicks in before they go for a run? Do you have any kind of timing
Yeah.
guidelines in that, or even types of food or stuff to have?
Yeah, so I suppose in the morning you're a little bit caught because we're already getting up early to run before work or get the long run out of the way in the weekend on a Sunday so we can enjoy our day. You are a little bit caught in the morning. When I was doing my marathon training, the minute I'd get up, I'd go down and boil the kettle and eat. You're not going to be hungry. You're not going to want it. You just, again, have to train yourself eating that early in the morning. So in the
You haven't
morning, I
seen
would
me
say,
with a leftover Chinese at 6 in the morning, Niamh.
Oh, God.
Ah, yes.
Advice for
Chicken
everyone else,
fried
Eric.
rice. Here we go. David, what was the plan? Because obviously you had spent a lot of time researching, so you knew-ish. I'm going to say ish. I'm going to make an assumption that you know what teams are trying to achieve in terms of time. It was only the second year, I think, in France you mentioned, so maybe you were just basing it off the year before. Did you have that level of information? And if so, then when you set the strategy for each individual, as Ben mentioned, he's probably not as strong in certain aspects. Did every individual set forth their pace that they said, I'm going to stick to? Or did you go with a team pacing that, look, we just need to hit this because we want to hit the 100K at so many hours? Or what was the strategy there?
Yeah, again, probably our strategy there was probably just very much like not very structured for all the world. We didn't really discuss that at all. We were all kind of just like, let's all just absolutely ruin ourselves. And if you have anything left by the end, you've done it wrong, essentially. And So like yeah, everyone was like everyone knew their pace immediately. Like after your first rep, like you know what you can hold essentially for like 85-90% 3K for. And you said then it was like everyone. I think there was also a this level of like everyone was holding that 90% for so long, and you almost felt obliged then that you couldn't drop your pace. If you dropped your pace, like you're leaving everyone down, which was awesome in a way. Like everyone, it was this unspoken way of like we just need to hold this. Like after that rep, if you knew that you were like holding the same pace or holding a good pace, you just had to hold it for the rest of the thing. And I think we were all like we were trying to put down a performance that we were proud of. We didn't necessarily want to come fourth or do it in X amount of hours or whatever. It was just like let's go out there and put down a performance that like we can go back and say like we smashed that. And that just the way that they have the race ran, considering it's not a race, they couldn't actually post a leaderboard because that would say it's a race. So what they used to do is they used to post a podcast episode on the hour every hour and delete the previous podcast episode. And then in the podcast, they would announce a list of the names of all the teams in descending order of how close they are to Marseille. So it wasn't a list, it wasn't a leaderboard, it was a list. So then I remember they were like really late posting the first podcast episode because they had like whatever, some tech issue or something. So we didn't know for like a good few hours in kind of whereabouts we even were. We were like, we don't even know if we're doing shit, if we're good, we haven't seen a team for hours. We could be even off the beaten track here. We've no clue where the hell we could be. Then they posted a thing and we were like, I think we were like 12th or something or 11th. We were like, holy, that we were like that blew our minds. We're like, that's way big. That's way better than we thought we would even do like by the end. So we're like, lads, we're smashing this. So then I think after that first one, we were like, let's just hold this. Like if we can hold this, we're going to be good essentially. So it kind of gave us a nice, like, I suppose like level where we know that if this is a good pace, like let's hold this, we know we're good. And then as went on, like, you know, on the hour, every hour, or however often they would post a podcast, we check it and we're like, we got up to 8th and then like 7th and then like 6th and then we got up to like 5th and then coming into like the last, I don't know what it was, like 30 or 40K, we were in 4th. And then I think at that point it was just like, lads, we can't fuck this up now. Like, because we saw the teams like ahead of us and behind us, like coming into Marseille, like, you know, you literally saw them in the streets of Marseille, like running around and you're like, these lads could beat us by literally a minute or 2 minutes. Like, it's crazy that like 30 plus hours comes down to literally almost like, it came down to minutes in the end. Between us and like say 5th place came in, like I think it was like 2 minutes after or something or more, maybe even more, but it was literally minutes. So I think at that point, yeah, we're like, screw the pacing. Everyone get out and just literally run the fastest 1K that you could possibly run and get back in the van. And it worked out in the end, which is great. So yeah, basically no strategy, but like after we all just kind of knew what we had to hold essentially.
That is the most ballsiest no strategy I think I've heard in 290 odd episodes of podcasts, guys. But when we're talking about relays, stuff like that, and we've had people in the podcast that have done relays across Ireland and stuff, and they've changed every, I can't remember, was it 10, 20 kilometers, stuff like that. Like, Jesus, that's too long. But fuck me, a kilometer switch coming in 4th. How the lactic acid buildup, like we've talked before on podcast doing. We prefer to do a marathon than 5K, because after 2-3K with 5K, you just want to get sick. And like, I have left 5Ks feeling worse than maybe not a marathon, but a half marathon definitely, where I'm just seized up and like the body's just, I'm limping around for a day or whatever. To push that hard and then knowing you're going to go back pushing. What are you doing in the van? What are you doing to recover apart from just energy drinks away you go? Is it just, yeah, is it youth? Is it what's going on here? Because I know if I push that hard for a kilometer sprint, I'm like, Eric, I'll see you in 2 hours, pal. You know, because especially after 20-30 hours.
I also need context. How big is this van? Because that big kind of the answer to this question.
9-seater, was it? Yeah. Like
a Volkswagen Caddy and everyone's in the back.
Like it was.
Is that pretty much it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it wasn't a fancy big thing. It was 9 seats, every single seat full, and it was basically, again, it was just kind of like collective buzz, but also equal parts, you know, collective misery at certain points where you're just everyone's hurting. The lactic acid actually, it never really got to that many people, but it's the stiffness of the van because you're so cramped that the first 500 meters of getting out of that van, it's like your legs are trying to break out a plaster cast because you're just, you know, you have to hit a pace. Like that's just in your head because everyone else has and you can't not. You just have to do it. So trying to get up to speed like that while
Like Forrest Gump with the braces on.
literally like Forrest Gump with the braces on. But also there was in the night there was a bit of like I mean I described it as like a flow state moment between like us three, like David, Frank, and I. Like, you know, one lad was having GI issues, and there was a couple of guys sleeping and injuries. Niggles started to appear at this point of the race. So we just started ripping caffeine gels and just doing 1.5, 2 to 3Ks back to back for like 2 hours, just over and over and over again. And then suddenly you end up.
Sarah, can I ask what you're training? I was hearing a few things recently. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I actually don't know. Like there's scientific studies like they were done years and years back, but they say a lot of them apply only to men because men were done it, whereas there's a lot more newer stuff coming out on females. Is there a difference with the training and the research and stuff when it comes to women and men? I suppose particularly with running, if not strength training, or is it a lot similar?
Well, I suppose the problem is there's very little research. So even some of this, like there's not any major peer-reviewed papers coming through that are, you know, groundbreaking or that are changing the way, you know, the way the whole kind of landscape looks. But I think it is really important. What I've seen over the years is a lot of coaches maybe who, you know, I'm not even saying that they're young or early 20s or maybe inexperienced, but they're just treating every female like a typical 21-year-old male, whereas there's so much more to take into consideration. And even with regard to one thing that always frustrates me is maybe people around the, you know, people are trying to lose weight. Sometimes people are very drastic with, now if you drastically drop your calories, 100%, you know, you're going to see weight loss, which sometimes is the only goal that is important to the individual at that moment in time. But it would frustrate me because I suppose there's no, you know, is she losing her menstrual cycle? Is it affecting, you know, how she performs, her fatigue? Is it, you know, is she trying to get pregnant? Is she perimenopausal? Like, I suppose there's so much else that has to be taken into consideration with females that, and it's not a lot of trainers, it's not their fault, but you don't know what you don't know. But it is something I think people who are coaching females need to be more open-minded and need to realize that they aren't just small men, which a lot of people, I suppose, we've been treated as for so long. And up and only recently that women are actually being involved in studies, you know, nutrition, health, exercise studies. And I would have even I remember for my master's, I did a study with only females. So it was older women, an older cohort, and then a younger cohort. And I remember at the time it was now again, I'm not patting myself in the back, but I don't remember anyone before that doing a research study. So we were in the School of Health and New Performance doing a study that involved women, and it went down to the hassle of recruiting. So if you're recruiting, I had to bring them in at a certain time in their menstrual cycle. So back in the day, I literally took a piece of brown paper, and in the postgrad room and I think I called my period chart, and I had all their names, and I had Catherine, Mary. I was like, her period is happening here, she's bleeding here. And yeah, the boys were just thought this is hilarious. And I was like, oh, here's the period chart. So yeah, it wasn't digital at all when I think about it. My God. But so it was trickier. Yeah. But look, it's so worthwhile. But I mean, that's how unusual. It's really tricky to do it with females. So for so long, they were just discarded. And what happened sometimes when there were women included, when it came to analysing the data, the women were just removed because they were throwing the results and people weren't getting the results that they kind of maybe hypothesized. So they just cut the females out and then we analysed the data again with just the men. So a lot of work still needs to be done. Now, there is a shift 100%, which is great because women have got really loud and I suppose they're advocating for themselves. But it still has quite a way to go.
During during marathon training, obviously, we discussed how coaches are more aware. Obviously, ladies are a little bit more aware, but they mightn't necessarily have come across the information. They might not understand why they've had a bad run, and it may be just in the build up, the post. It's just where you are in the cycle. It may be nutrition. Maybe you're lacking in something. How, I suppose, obviously this is where kind of your business kind of stepped in, and you're doing little bits and you're raising awareness about it through other things. For women who are training and have probably had an off day, and maybe they're looking at Dublin Week kind of with a lack of confidence, or they're worried about it, what kind of advice, or maybe they haven't taken on the marathon, maybe they've set a ceiling at a 10k and they may be considering going longer. What advice do you give these ladies as they look to get all the advice they need and to kind of prepare themselves for training and to understand what their bodies are doing when they're training?
I think that it's really important that they work with maybe someone that is respected. So in terms if they're following a program, and like I said, I follow the runner program, which I think is, I think it's deadly because it's like, it's exactly what I needed. Whenever I first signed up for my first race post babies, like I said, last year, the lads were all signing up for the Cliodhna half. And I said, I'm not doing this without a program. And that was why I was like, just for the 7 weeks out, give me something. What should it look like? 2 days a week. And I followed that. But I would be, I suppose, with my experience, I knew at different times, like over the years, the runner program has thrown up some bizarre paces at me, throwing up some bizarre, like it's treating me like a runner. Just like, that is not for me, you know?
You're going to have to coin that phrase.
But like, it's not that could rattle you, I think, or I suppose I understand that's kind of a blip with the app. I presume the app is using AI or something. So it's just a blip and it's missing that human touch. So maybe if you are finding, the programs like that or run a program is kind of, it's putting you on a program that is too advanced for you and it's knocking your confidence over anything else. It might be advisable to look for someone in like an actual person, a proper coach. I do think it is like, if you can get someone who understands marathon training and I suppose understands where you're at, like I said, more than likely you're not, you don't want to just set a world record or an Irish record. You want to go out and complete it, feel comfortable, that it doesn't take over your life. And I think that's a huge part. What I find with women is the nutrition side. Women historically, not all women, but a lot of women have this thing about, I think people think when you start running, you're going to lose weight. But if you're fueling properly, which you absolutely should be, you don't really lose weight. You should, like, I don't think you should. If you're fueling properly, if you're loading the way you should, if you're taking on your carbs, you absolutely, the weight shouldn't be falling off you at all. And I think people who feel exhausted or run training absolutely destroys them. I think it's because they're under fueling for what they're doing. So I think for women especially, it's really important. Like if they're struggling to understand it themselves, seek out someone that understands. Like, and even for me, the whole the carb loading the few days before, like even sometimes how hard can it be? It's really hard. Like it really is hard, and it's hard. I have found, like, for my 32k and for my 27k, I find it was getting to 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, I still have 200 or 300 calories more to go. And that's where, so there's Alana Kelly Nutrition. She has an amazing spreadsheet, and she's kind of like, you put in what you're eating, but she kept, will you plan it? Where I was like, no, I sort of would put it in at 6 o'clock thinking that I was nearly done and populate it then. And I, without fail, so literally yesterday, because we did a 13k today, and I said, I'm going to practice the foods that I'll eat, say, next Saturday. And the difference when I front loaded early in the morning, and I knew everything that I had to get in. So by the time it got to 6 o'clock, I nearly had all the carbs in that I needed. So I felt so much more comfortable going to bed, so much more comfortable this morning. Whereas previously I would have felt bloated and uncomfortable, and you're nearly taking it in kind of because you think you have to, which is not, I don't think that's a good idea either.
When you're lining up and you say you're doing 13, 14 marathons, what is the mindset? What are you saying to yourself? Are you trying to rile yourself up for another PB attempt, or are you trying to calm yourself down? How does it work for you?
I'm the complete opposite. I'm trying to stay as calm as I can and just try and relax and try and understand that, like, realistically, right? It doesn't matter who we are, if it's me or it's you, Eric, or you, Sean. Like, I mean this in the nicest possible way. No one cares. Like, no one cares. You know, you care, right? And you care about your time, and the pressure's within you. Like we're going to go around that race, and all been well, I finish in a certain position, and you finish in a certain position. But really, it's only you. It's your time, and you spend more of these Sundays out on the road by yourself in shitty weather, rain and wind, and then you're suffering, and then you're coming back, and you come back, and you have to get stuck into normal life and take your kids to their sport or go to work or whatever. Do it at 6 a.m, go to work all day. Sunday is the nice one. It's the nice version. You get to put on your shoes, your fancy shorts and vest. People are clapping and cheering for you that you don't even know. You get to the finish line, and honestly, I've had some brilliant ones and some really bad ones, and the celebration or the downside to it, or the sadness, it lasts the same length of time. Come Wednesday, someone will just say to you, well, what's the crack? How's the kids? Da, da, da. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So the whole point is just to try and stay as relaxed as you can for as long as you can. You don't want to be getting wired up with Rocky music in mile 1. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then you go, fuck, how am I getting through this? The whole goal. And then during the race, I just go through this constant. Like if things start to feel like they're getting tight or difficult, I just try and talk myself around and be like, well, are you that bad? Are you really struggling? No, you've struggled more on a Sunday by yourself. You've struggled more during the week at 6 o'clock in the morning. Catch a grip of yourself. Oh, here comes a wee downhill. Take a breather. You will do a serious talking to yourself, but just try and make sure that when those wee negative things creep in or things feel like they're getting tight, do your very best to just bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Whether it's a downhill, whether it's you ducking in behind a group, whether it's you taking your gel and a bit of water, do whatever you can just to try and relax yourself as much as you can, at least for a few minutes. You know what I mean?
And it's important at the start, Mick, because the start is, as everyone has described, and our pacers a couple of weeks ago described, it is a gentle climb for the first 8, if not up to 10K.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dublin's a great course. Like, I know a lot of people come out and they say, oh, it's a hilly course, it's a tough course. Yeah, but there's a lot of pulls and climbs in it, but there's also a lot of downhills in it. And instead of going through, there's a good downhill section going through Phoenix Park. And if you're coming through there, don't be going through there trying to be a superhero or trying to make up time for later on in the marathon. Go through there, hold the pace that you're looking, and try and bring yourself your energy back. Do you know what I mean? So don't go down those hills in the first half of the marathon. The first half is a tougher half than the second half, if that makes sense. So from naught to halfway, any pulls you're going up, yes, just get through them, get over them. Any downhills in the first half, just use them to get energy back, get energy back, get energy back. Don't be using them to try and bank some crazy 10 seconds every mile. Just try and get yourself back, try and relax yourself. And then when you get into the second half is an easier half than the first in Dublin.
I've found on marathons I've done really bad. The second half, I'm like, oh, well, all the hills and stuff the first half did me in. It's like, no, Sean, it's the pacing from the get-go. You wanted to keep this pace. Like last year, I was like, just try and get in on 3:45, 3:50. And I started off at a 5-minute pace, get me near 3:30. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll have this again, 3:30. And halfway through, I knew I didn't. I was like, well, it's the hills. Like, no, I did not stick to the plan of that pace and being realistic with this is the goal, trying to get through. And when people say it's a negative split marathon, the fastest, the second half could be faster than the first. Usually that doesn't happen. It's more inexperienced like myself go, try, get banked the first half marathon and then hold on for dear life the second half. But you will suffer a lot more if you trying to bank extra minutes, like you said, bombing down the hills and stuff, being sparked to make up the second half. It's just absolute torture. And I hope I really listen to myself Sunday saying that right now.
I've done it myself. Like, I've come through Phoenix Park and I've come down them hills and in them splits going, oh, look at this. 10 seconds up, you lunatic. Do you know what I mean? And you see, it's like a frigging mortgage. It puts interest on in the second half. If you take them 10 seconds in that first half, it's coming back for 20 every mile in the second half.
Absolutely, 100%.
There's expert advice that can help you navigate through a lot of what has become so complex through every bit of everything that's been thrown at us. The other bit I want to talk about is post-marathon. It's probably something people that I have definitely struggled with it. I know Sean definitely struggles with it. And I just want to know your experience on it. Obviously, if you're keeping training, but training for a 10K versus marathon and the quantity of food we've become accustomed to eating and love eating.
And
How do you bring
Christmas
yourself down? Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, it's hard. It's not
I'm
easy.
6K open last year. I'm 6K open last year. Easily. easily because of that Dublin into Barcelona into not doing 2-3 months and taking that off and just still eating when I was eating. What a fat mess.
How do you manage it? How do you manage it, Kev?
I'm 25 kilos over my race weight.
Wow. Okay.
That make you feel better.
Well,
You feeling,
I was going to say, you
good
made me
now,
feel a
Sean?
lot better, Kev. I feel like I got a way to go, but I'm starting to climb. But Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, that's 4.5 years not running, like, and then eating the same way you eat when you're training and running, 140K a week. Yeah.
Is there a way to manage it for people, in particular when they're reducing from marathon into 10Ks? I know you have to fuel, and it's most important. People who are using these as an opportunity to lose weight is not necessarily a good idea, but there is a stark difference between marathon and 10K.
Yeah, no, like I remember like for maybe 2005, and I was doing a bit of coaching in a gym, and I gave out programs to 4 ladies, and they were doing Belfast Marathon, and they did the marathon in the May, and then they came back to me in July, and every single one was like, "We need to get back on the program with you. We're after putting on weight." The amount of weight that you actually lose, even though it's not a primary focus for a lot of people, but you do naturally lose weight when you're running all that mileage, So, and that's a key thing too. I found a few people I coach are under fueling, so that's something you need to kind of to stay on top of as well, like so that you have the energy output then to perform in training, but also you don't want to lose too much weight because you're losing a lot of power. So look, I think I've ran a 2:46 marathon weighing 95 kilos, and I've ran a 2:39 marathon weighing 74 kilos. So like 7-minute difference, but the weight is massive. So I think there's a kind of happy medium with, the power to weight ratio when you're racing. And I think definitely, like, there's 2 things happening I see online, particularly on social media, is you have the buff guys who are promoting, obviously, I can be jacked up and still run a really good marathon. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you have people then that think for every kilo they're losing, they're going to run 3 minutes quicker per kilometer or per mile based on weight as well. And that gets a little bit unhealthy as well. So you kind of have to know as a coach as well. It's a tricky one to know when to kind of step in and kind of say to someone, what are we doing fueling wise? When are we taking our food intake? What's our food kind of look like on a weekly basis? Because if you get it wrong, you can give them the best training plan in the world, but if you ain't fueled properly, you ain't going to run well,
2:46, 95 kilo, Kev. I'm not feeling all too well again because I had that excuse of Dublin this weekend. I'm pushing off 90. It's going to be one of my worst times. So thanks for that.
Hey, just think on the downhills, you're going to fly.
Roll down it.
If he was on rollerblade. Absolutely excellent. And then as people manage the Christmas, and obviously recovery is a good time, Christmas into January can be a very difficult time for people, Kev, in terms of training, mostly because the weather is shit, family are around, the selection boxes are still hanging around that I'm going to be eating this Christmas, and the temptations everywhere, but the mileage, everything else, it's harder to get out the door. What's your recommendation for people as well as we move into those Christmas periods, December, January in particular, to give themselves an advantage? And I always say, if you start training in December, and at 1 year I'll follow my advice, this year maybe, if you start in December, you've given yourself a great foundation for the January or the New Year's resolutions, as they call it.
Yeah, I love that one. I definitely think, like, if you can my kind of take on it is, like, obviously a lot of people doing Dublin Marathon, October's basically finished. November should be a period where, you're resting up and maybe having a think about what your targets might be. We mightn't necessarily want to rush straight into racing again. I have a good few people that will be doing Donna D, so managing that is difficult too, because that's February. It's February, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Valentine's Day this year.
While it's close enough, it's still far away at the same time, because if you've built all this fitness for the marathon, you don't want to just like go straight back into to long runs. So you have to take a little period off and then start to just maybe start off with like half marathons and build up your long runs again. A bit like your marathon block, but just probably a little bit extra on the long runs. So yeah, it's just a case of getting November the rest period, but not bringing November into December and just tipping away. I love the ideas of maybe for the month of December doing a park run every Saturday. You mightn't do them full blast, but you might just use it as a session. And again, that just gets you out the door on a Saturday, and then starting off the week. I used to do my run classes on a Monday after the marathon, and it was brilliant because people loved it because you started the week on a real positive.
On a good note.
And you didn't have that big long run in your legs on a Saturday or Sunday and taking it into the Monday. So maybe start with doing a speed session early in the week on a Monday or a Tuesday, and then you'll have something then to build on within the week. Whereas if you're in a marathon block, you can't really do a speed session on a Monday because you just get injured,
But I remember the last treatment centre I was in, they do a family day, where essentially all your family come down, everyone's family into the one room, and you talk through these things, kind of group therapy style thing. And my family had obviously been involved in that in the other rehabilitation centres that I was in. This time I remember we got down to the family day, and my family, my core people weren't there. And I was looking around the room, and all these people who I thought were worse than me or, at the bottom of the barrel, all of their families were there. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It just dropped down on me at once. I was like, you're 21, 20, whatever it was at the time, and you're at real risk here of the people who you love most in the world, your closest core people, are just done with you because you've put them through this too many times. It's not that they don't love you or they're not going to show up for you. They just can't watch you do this anymore, And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember going up to the bedroom that evening and just staring at the wall. And it wasn't like, it hits you and then you figure it all out, and day by day, everything gets really, really good. And then we end up in this great place. It's a confusing journey, but I just remember that moment, and I'll always remember that pivotal moment of I'm going to lose everything I've ever loved if I don't figure this out. And I may have thought this about myself. I may have wanted to do this with my life, but I can't do any of that unless I figure this one thing out. And I've been messing about for a couple of years there. Let's get this show on the road. Took a long time after that, but that was when I look back, the key moment of you got to figure this out, man.
Did this then lead straight into the running journey? Because one of your recent your diary episodes you put in, you've quote unquote, the marathon saved my life. And I know from personal training and, in the gym and stuff and training people, it's one of those that when you train people, you say it's very good for your mental health and stuff. And then some people that have been through it go, you know what? No, because there's underlying issues and stuff. I'm like, no, but it can help you release we know it, like the base of it releases certain endorphins and all the rest. For you then, did the running become, I don't want to say a crutch, but just something that got you through from there, or what happens then? What's your thoughts when you hear kind of like just exercise for mental health and everything else goes through from there?
A couple of things. When I started running, there is absolutely no doubt it was a crutch. Again, I needed something. I needed this piece to escape. It was probably, again, just that addicted mind leaning into something, anything, to just get away. And at this point, I'd gone to, they call it a secondary rehabilitation centre. I was kind of there for 6 months to reintegrate myself back into life, because the key thing for me is I went to these little treatment centres where I you'd get clean, but then you go back to life. And I kind of learned after a while, I knew how to get sober, but I had no idea how to stay sober. So to go to this place for 6 months, and I found that incredible. Probably the best thing I've ever done in my life, but also potentially the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. And, when you're living in a house with 10 lads who are going through the same battle you're going through, it's difficult. And getting out in the evening, every evening for a run, was just this split moment in time of your time. Everything's going to be okay here, buddy. Just get out and put one foot in front of the other. There was no talk of marathons or going a bit quicker or anything like this. It was just an escape. So at the beginning, absolutely, I was running away. And then as I, progressed a little bit more into myself, I started to find out who I was, what I wanted to do in life. and I didn't need to lean on these voices as much anymore. I found myself running towards something instead of running away from something, if that makes sense, you know. And I always kind of say now, like, I have a couple of opinions on it. One of them is I will always have this element of an addictive personality in my belief. You know, some people would disagree with that and tell you, oh, you need to cure all your voices. And that's okay. That's an opinion too. For me, I will always have this thing inside me that needs to channel my energy somewhere. And it's my duty as someone who knows that to make sure I channel it somewhere healthy, somewhere positive. Running can be that and it can't be that, you know. And I always kind of go by, it's okay to run 100 kilometers a week and 120, whatever it is, and say you're not addicted, as long as that's not the only thing you do in that week, you know. So I kind of find myself falling into these mindsets. If my whole week revolves around that 100, 120 kilometers, then I'm falling into this thing of chasing running. Whereas if that 120 kilometers is a part of a bigger week, of other things, of other places, of other people, I'm in a better mindset, you know. But for me, movement, I say the marathon saved my life, and I'm going to reword that a little bit and say getting sober absolutely saved my life, but the marathon and running gave me a life that I never had, you know.
Right.
And I need that. I need that outlet. I've never been someone who sits still very well. I often find myself in a place in life where I'm struggling with something. I've had a hard day. I come home, I lace up my runners, and it's like this process of meditation. You know, I go out, I think about it, I come home with a clearer mind, I have some food, and I feel a bit better, you know, and I don't think you can put a price on that. So I guess there's two sides of the coin, you know. It can be that defective thing, but it can also be one of the most positive powers there is.
There's half of our listeners now all side-eyeing each other when you said, if running is the only thing you think about all week, they're all like, what did he just say? Because running, although it is, and we can talk about it, does become your personality. But as you have correctly said, as long as it is having a positive impact, that you're not saying, Mom, can't see you because I have to run, or I'm going running and I don't care that the dog needs to be walked or this needs to be done. You know, it's when you start to break down relationships around you because of what it is you're doing. And that's the fundamental element we're doing, because let's be honest, you can cover 120k quicker than I can cover 40k. So we're probably doing the same time away. And and that's probably what people are listening to going, am I addicted to running? Yes, we all are addicted to running. If you're listening to this podcast, you're addicted to running. Who's listening to running podcasts when they're running? But it's, when you look at that now, obviously we've come through secondary rehab. We're now taking on our first runs. And I just want to touch on that because we touched on it at the start and I want to come back to it. At what point now did your dad have an input into this element of your life when running became an element? Did you start to form a new relationship with your dad? Because obviously we broke down that relationship quite deeply.
For sure.
Now all of a sudden we're in secondary rehab. We're turning a page, but the page is blank. And now you're saying, I'm going to try run. Did we form a new relationship, or what was this starting like?
I guess, like, looking back through my whole life, me and my dad have always been best friends, you know, like we've always been really close. And that was obviously the big chasm in between our relationship was addiction, and what that does to the family and what it did to our relationship. Likewise, what it did to other relationships in my life too. At this point, there's obviously like a massive amount of skepticism. You know, is he going to stay sober? Is it going to be the same again? And of course there is, you know, like you got to be deluded to just believe these things and take them at face value. So there's that little bit of standoffishness, which is important too, you know, for him to manage his own expectations and feel, you know, safe, I guess. But we were starting to get on. I wasn't living at home, and I didn't for quite a while. And I guess when I started to sort of tip into the running, it gave us this kind of new piece to talk about. Was one thing for sure. Like you know, I'd call my dad every night or every second night, whatever it was. And we kind of talk a little bit about running. You know, I'd ask him how his run was. He'd ask me how my run was. And I, for one, was getting pretty excited that I was starting to see things. You know, I can go a little bit further, Dad. I can go a little bit quicker, Dad. And I think those things, you know, looking back now, I guess, you kind of take all those things for granted now, but I remember how excited I was when I'd look down at the watch and I'd see, you know, something under a 5-minute kilometer start to clip through. I'd be, we're moving here, you know, we're progressing. But it gave me that thing to kind of bring to him. I guess at the beginning it was like this pride piece I bring to him when I go, look, Dad, look what I did, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, son, you're 21, get on with it. And it's kind of like just this rebuilding process, you know, but it definitely brought us closer together. Like running to this day, My dad still runs every day. Now, he's a bag of bones, he'll tell you the same himself, but he runs every single day, and I do the same. And it is definitely this big piece in our relationship to this day that we have a chat about running, we have a chat about athletics. And looking back, I guess, to go back to your question there, at this point, it probably was a pivotal part of rekindling this kind of relationship between us. It wasn't the only thing, but it was definitely kind of this centerpiece of, you know, okay, we're sharing something here, we're bonding over something again, we're moving in a new direction. Because for me, I guess at this point, the biggest thing I realized, and I guess looking back in general, I truly believe the reason I could never get sober when I tried all those other times, because I had no idea who I was or who I wanted to be or where I wanted to go in life, because I was so filled with shame and insecurity and all these things that were just bogging me down. I spent so long in life just pretending to be someone else, you know, blending into all these places, thinking I needed to fit in, that people needed to like me. So I never actually stopped and asked myself, who is it that you want to be, you know? And I guess with the running and also this kind of process of me finding out who I am and really just taking that time to say, right, you know, where are we going here? We started to come back closer together.
Let's say myself, Eric walks in to you. We have the Hokas on, the running shorts are on. We might even have I'll have a running bib on me because I want to show up me arms and stuff because I have something going for me. What, and in the back of your mind, I haven't said a word to you yet. And let's say you are the type, I'm not saying you are, that is like, just guessing what you're trying to guess what someone does or like that. You're making assumptions is what I'm trying to get at. What are the common running assumptions, or what are the common things that happen when someone walks into you in terms of training mistakes, in terms of errors they're doing, just the basics kind of thing before we get a little bit more deeper into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so like everyone's different and their story is going to be different to them, but there is definitely kind of common themes. I'm speaking to 30, 40, 50 runners a week, so you'll see the trends that most people do. Probably none of these things are going to be a great shock, but people are still getting injured. Sometimes they just need to keep being repeated and repeated by different voices, and then
absolutely
something lands, and that's my job done. And then you're sitting on, like, because I speak to so many people, you're sitting on the amount of information. So even from a personal thing, I can learn from them, learn good things as well as the bad things or the mistakes, so people could do better. One of the big ones, again, it's not going to be shocking, is just the strength and conditioning. It's either it's not there, it's poor, doing the wrong things, not doing enough of it. It's particularly like if you get someone, maybe they'll come in and they're saying, no, I'm doing this training routine, these things in the gym. Typically it's a bit underloaded, not enough weight, but it's just a bit of a haphazard selection of exercises. If you think like you're going to go to your doctor, you get a blood test, and you're deficient in certain things, they're going to give you the meds exactly for those things. So similar, you might ideally go and see someone like myself or someone who knows running, and a PT or a physio. They're going to say, all right, your calf on your left side is weaker than the right one, your glute is weaker, your quad is pretty good, you don't need to do much work there. You've actually got things that are specific to you, but then you can actually improve those deficits that are, and rather than just kind of throwing things at the wall and hoping it sticks. That's kind of the big thing from the conditioning point of view.
In terms of, just to add on to conditioning, because one thing that's been thrown around a lot now is mobility. So it's not just about conditioning, particularly for us who are living sedentary lives. My job involves sitting in the front of an aircraft. I'm sitting there. I'm sitting then when I'm not in it. I'm sitting 8 hours a day. The only time I'm not sitting is when I maybe go for a run. Mobility is becoming a big factor in a lot of this strength conditioning and mobility. It's becoming a big factor. What does that mean to you, and what are runners missing out on?
There's probably an overemphasis that people come in and think it needs to be all flexibility and I need to do stretches. And the big things is my hamstrings aren't flexible or my hip flexors are tight. Now, if you have a job like yourself and you are sitting 8 hours a day, you might be kind of on the other side of things and actually do need to do a little bit of work there. But if you look at the running action, for as long as we're not sprinting, anything from like 5K to marathon pace, you don't need huge amount of flexibility. You need a little bit around the ankle, or a good bit around the ankle and calf. You need a little bit around the hamstring. But otherwise, like people, again, if we think we're all short on time, I'd rather someone does more gym work, more strengthening than mobility. But you can use the strength for mobility as well. You're doing things like eccentric exercises, or we're doing almost mobility with weights, that you're going to get some strengthening and some lengthening of your tissues at the right time. But again, that could be something that you don't need to do. So get it checked out first of all. If you're stiffer in one side than the other, or you need the mobility work, then get it done. But otherwise, focus on what you need to do.
Huge generalization here, Enda. But what would be your go-to exercises for people listening that the next session's into the gym? Do you have go-tos you always go to?
Yeah, there's a few that I'd kind of try and get everyone to do. The gyms around Dublin are going to need some new Smith machines, because that's my favorite one for the calves in particular.
Yes.
If you like the amount of weight you need to really strengthen your calves, there's absolutely no way you're going to hold that in a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Whereas if you get into a Smith machine, it's completely locked in. You don't need to control the weight at all. Ideally, you're putting for a double leg calf raise on the edge of a step in the machine. You should be getting up to close to 2 times your body weight for multiple reps for that. And then close-ish to 1 time your body weight for a single leg. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be holding a 140 kg dumbbell trying to do a calf raise.
Talk to me a little bit more of this, because I've had issues, and I've talked on the podcast for years with calves and Achilles, and I would do a little bit. So I body weights for a couple of reps, and 20 kilo one hand. I'm not holding much more than that for like 5, 6, but no, sorry, a little bit more reps, but not too much. And then I get me stretches in, and I'm like, right, my Achilles is sore. I'm not doing any more than that. I'm moving on to my other stuff. And it never got better, and I moaned about it for years in this podcast, pretty much almost since day one. You can hear me back in 2020 talking about this when no one listened. And then I took 6 weeks off, wedding, all the rest, married. I was like, oh, my Achilles going to be better. No difference. And then I saw something online, was like, no, you need to load it. And then I started doing, like, for example, what you're talking about there, not one, actually near one time my body weight, on the barbell, calf raises there, dumbbells, more raises, more bounds, more jumps, and all the rest. And then 3-4 weeks later, touch wood, I've had little to no Achilles pain. How much, like, are people just chronically underloading when you're like, and is that just specific to, I think, calves? The second part of that question.
It's probably most things. It's like tendons. So your Achilles tendon, and any tendon needs load. Same thing if you have a bit of, like, again, generalized diagnosis here, but like a runner's knee, front of your knee, your patella tendon. Really, like, heavy, high strength loads are the only thing that's going to get that better, because they actually like load. They respond to it. If you it's a bit of Goldilocks thing. If you underdo it, it's not going to feel better. You can overdo it as well. That's why you need to build it up gradually. But I get majority of people are underloading, particularly the calves, the Achilles issues. That's why they're so chronic and persistent, and it feels better, but it hasn't actually got any stronger. Then you go back and run in, and you're flaring things up again.
And how little or important is like foam rolling out the calves and stuff, with or without strength training?
I'd put it as kind of around the edges. It's your 5% type stuff. If you're not doing the other things, it's worthless. But if you're on top of everything else, then it can play a little bit of a role, yeah. And then just back to, sorry, you if you were saying about some other exercises, key ones in the gym, do your calf. Then the glute medius is another one. So everyone kind of focuses on the big glute max one, the big backside muscle, and they're there in the gym doing their hip thrusts all day long. But the glute medius is the one that every time you land on one leg, it's going to control the stability of the hips, the pelvis. If you can imagine, your pelvis should be nice and solid. If that's going to start wobbling around every time you land, the more you do that, yeah, you'll see that sometimes. Like
that is Eric.
People judge themselves on the race photos a bit too much, but you'll see that sometimes where you get just like a drop on one side of the pelvis. When we do our gait analysis in the clinic, we see that as well. And a lot of that is just like hip strengthening. So that would be things like side planks with a leg lift, split squats, step ups, those kind of things. Those one-legged exercises that really load up the outer hip.
I'm just going to get into a side plank here while you keep talking there.
But stop you sitting all day, Eric.
Sean has been slagging me about, he knows when I get tired, because come the end of the race, it's like the hips are just gone left, right, all over the place. I'd probably be a better hula hoop champion than I would be a running champion.
Like, I got a really good story about Denali, and I suppose not necessarily how that happened, but Denali's in Alaska, yeah, and you kind of fly to this really quirky town called Talkeetna, right, which is an unincorporated community, so it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, and the mayor of the town is a cat.
Oh yes,
yeah, the mayor of the town's a cat, right? So we were Talkeetna a couple of days before, and you fly from Talkeetna on one of those small like de Villiers otters, about 50 minutes into base camp stuff. It's just it's amazing scenery, just Alaska and stuff. And yeah, so like the town itself, it kind of looks like, imagine like a wild, a John Wayne Western, with the kind of fronts of the building and stuff, but it has electricity. So it's kind of like that. And there's a place called Nagley's, which is the mercantile store, and the cat lives in there. So basically, for the last 10, 15 years, any cat that resides in here is the mayor. So we met the mayor when we were there.
Where's the mayor of the town?
We met the mayor of Talkeetna, yeah. Oh yeah, so I was telling you about the story. So like by far Denali then was like the toughest. Like if you Google it, right, there is parallels to Everest. It's really tough. And I remember our guide, we were chatting because you're fully self-sufficient, and he was there kind of going like, day one is the hardest, and I was there kind of, yeah, what? Like he was dead serious. Like day one is the hardest, and he was right. Day one in Denali is the hardest. So I was there. We were there for 23 days. Day one is the hardest.
And what made it so difficult?
So you're starting, I suppose, kind of soft snow, right? So you're not wearing crampons, you're wearing snowshoes, right? Which are a bit of a pain to use. So it's soft. And then you might have maybe 35, 40, 45 kilograms on your back. And then you've got a sled that's kind of attached to ropes that's maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 feet behind you. And then you're tied into like probably groups of 4 or groups of 3, depending on the mix. And then you're going uphill. So you've like your weight, you've got the sled pulling behind you, which doesn't play ball at all. Like 45, maybe 45, 90 kilograms, 100 kilograms shared food and everything for the 23 days. And you're going uphill. And I remember going into Camp 1, absolutely fucking banjaxed. And I was there like, oh God, I've made a mistake. Like, this is really tough. But in a way, it was kind of cool because it was the toughest. Like the other days were really tough as well. But day one was really hard. But it was a real eye opener. But no, it was great. No, I loved it.
Tell me you done some strength training by here. Had you done a bit of strength training all knowing this was coming? Had you been into the gym at this stage, or was this?
No,
I
didn't do any strength training. And like my buddy Harley got the frostbite. He was sending me pictures of like he was going up around the field with a sled tied to his back. I was just kind of laughing at him like, and I was there. No, we don't need to do that. And the reality was, I should have been doing that as well. I should have been out in a field pulling a tire somewhere, which I didn't. But no, in fairness, Harley did. Like, the story. So it was 23 days, and Denali is tough. Self-sufficient, you carry your own stuff, and it's that climb high, sleep low, and that's why it takes so long. So what you do is, say if you're going between a couple of camps, say tomorrow, you might go maybe 60% of the way there, and you'll bury a load of your stuff in the snow. So you'll dig a big hole, you chuck everything into it, and you'll cover it up, and you'll stick a little thin flag. And then you might spend an hour there, and then you might come back down. And weather plays a part as well, because you can get delayed. And then the day after, what you do is you'll go 100% to the next camp. And you'll set up camp, and you'll drop, say, the other half of your load there. And then the day after, you'll do a back carry. So you'll come back to that 60% point. You'll dig up all your stuff. Your bags are empty. You'll dig up all that stuff. You'll bring it, and you'll bring it to that camp. And you keep going that way. You take a rest day in between and stuff like that. So that's the way you do it. And it's funny, like if you Google it, right, like no matter what you bring, right, let's say if you decide to bring 8 Mars bars instead of 4 Mars bars, you have to carry those extra 4 Mars bars. So literally grams come into play. So like we were kind of told, don't bring too much food, don't bring too much gear, etc. Once you get to high camp, everybody will be giving away food. People that have summited because they won't want to carry it down. It was actually true. Because people you were kind of going up and they were offering you food, but they were like, do you want the jellies? Yeah, but you have to take the fucking carb bar as well, like, because you can't take both. You got to take both of these, like. And so like guys are coming down and stuff like that. And like Denali is proper, it's a really good mountain.
23 days though, that's a lot of food, like. No,
yeah, it's a good bit of food. So like everybody's carrying the shared load element of it as well. You know, so like you're making camp. So with the exception of kind of high camp, you were getting like a tin foil like pot noodle. I think Mountain something is the name of them, and like they're ridiculous. They've got like a 40-year shelf life. If you look the best before, it's like 3050 or something like that. They last forever. Right? You just put water in, they're just calories and just eat them and stuff. But up to that point, you're able to make food and stuff. So you'll just make camp and you'll. Typically the guide will cook because you don't want the risk of contamination and stuff, so you get one person doing it, so one person is controlling the food and the hygiene and stuff like that. Denali's a proper experience, proper mountains, like by far to date the toughest of the 6, 100%.